Okay, real quick. Yes, I'm back in front of the green screen that's not being used here on the channel. I've actually decided to kind of build out a bit more since the channel kind of took off a little quicker than I thought it would, and I just kind of had that brick backdrop set up with like some RGB lights. I figured I would spend a little bit of time and build it out this weekend so it's larger and I don't have to be as zoomed in because it's not actually that big of a backdrop. And I figure I might even get the LEDs and better spots and everything. Just to let you guys know, we're going back to that. I like that backdrop, kind of separate the channels. So the Call of Duty beta is currently running. People are playing it. Essentially the early part of the game. From what I'm seeing, it is multiplayer going on right now where people are actually playing it, they're ranking up, and they're getting all kinds of stuff as they do it. And the question we've had for Call of Duty seems to be one that's answered without too much issue. Are there going to be microtransactions after it releases? If you remember with Black Ops 4, they put the game out, it got good reviews. Everything seemed surprisingly good up until about a month or two after it released. And then boom, microtransactions. In fact, they went pretty crazy. That's the one that we talked about where there was like a $2 or something, like red dot site or reticle. They were selling dots, literal dots for a couple of dollars. And it sounded crazy, but I'm sure they made money off of that. I have a feeling some people bought that dot. That red dot for a couple bucks. Oh yes, I have to imagine that was the case. And now going into Modern Warfare, which I have to admit, looking at it gameplay wise is solid, right? I played the gunfight mode, really enjoyed it, had some fun with it, did a video on it even, and it was something in the back of my mind. I'm like, look, Infinity Ward is probably going to make a very good game, and then Activision's going to mess it up, right? They're going to come in with the microtransactions and possibly loot boxes. Loot boxes have had a big pushback recently. Even the UK very recently, I think it was yesterday, or even early this morning, put out a pretty serious report on loot boxes, the gambling mechanics in games, and just pointing out that there's a problem and something needs to be done about them. So you figure at that point, games might back off and try to figure out some other way to monetize these games. Well, looks like as people are playing through the beta right now for Call of Duty and they're getting to certain ranks, they are, they're figuring out that loot boxes are kind of already in the game. Like, they're already there in spirit, in title, in text, but they're not getting seemingly the supply drop as they're called yet. Let me turn your attention here on Twitter to Nero's Cinema, as you're seeing here. They put up this full video on Twitter, and you're going to see they go through, and as they get to, according to them, rank 6 in the beta, they get what appears to be a supply drop right there, a common supply drop. It's kind of hard because that white bar is in the way, but it is a common supply drop that appears to have been received, and supply drops previously were loot boxes. They were essentially boxes you get, of course, that just had any number of things in it. I specifically remember this whole thing from Call of Duty WW2, I believe, where they would drop and people would watch you open stuff. And that was a whole thing on its own because people would get real excited if you get something really cool. It was all flashy and everything. That was an obvious ploy to get people interested in loot boxes. So here we are now, at least knowing ahead of time that there will be some sort of supply drop in the game, and of course loot boxes basically. Now here's the real question: what is going to be in those loot boxes? Are they going to be cosmetic items? Because I have a feeling a lot of people will be able to live with it if it is your standard cosmetic stuff. Now, I don't really think you need to have loot boxes in $60 games. I just don't think it's really needed. And if these game companies are really struggling for money that much they need to put this stuff in, well, you got to figure something out then, right? Because to have to put in games of chance just to stay afloat seems like a bad business idea with how the government is currently swarming around this stuff. I feel like I would be kind of leaning towards something else to figure anything else out. So if they go the route of cosmetics, I think most people will learn to deal with it, because I can say that the gameplay itself is very good. Like the gunplay is good. The feeling of it is great. The guns sound good. I haven't played the campaign, and that's really something I'm interested in. And I will say it seems that these loot boxes are pretty much part of multiplayer and not campaign. So I am interested at least in that part, but man, it's going to be really annoying if you have to go through earning loot boxes and everything to get stuff. But I assume, again, a lot of people, especially people who play competitively, won't care at all. But it is interesting to see them continue doing this with even EA kind of backing out of the whole loot box thing. Now, they'll get it, like I said, they'll have an easier time putting it out there if it's cosmetic. The moment anything that has to do with, let's say, guns, weapons, attachments, anything that gives you an advantage in the game gets grouped into these loot boxes, that's when you have a problem, is when there are obvious advantages to gain through this. That's how Battlefront 2 was absolutely destroyed, was because if you put in $100, you would start getting some pretty good stuff, right? You get some really nice star cards and everything, and your characters would all of a sudden be much stronger than someone who did not put money in. Or you'd play hundreds of hours to grind away for Darth Vader or something, right? After buying the game, even special edition versions for $80 to $100. So we'll see about this. Just know, at least at this time, we know right now that there will be loot boxes in the game, and they've said that they're going to go over how they plan to monetize this game before the game comes out. I believe there was on Reddit, there was like an AMA that took place, and one of the developers said that they would be going over it ahead of release. Well, we're getting close to that release time, so you figure in the next week or two, they would have some sort of statement coming out that says, hey, here's how we're going to make money beyond that initial 60 that you give us. Yeah, we're going to push it. And if you remember, we've seen them do some crazy stuff with like $50 season passes on top of microtransactions, and they're not going to stop at that 60. And if loot boxes is going to be their thing this year, you know they're going to be pushing that very, very hard. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. I'm glad to hear that we know about it now, and instead of 2 months after the game comes out. But thanks guys for watching. I'll see you next time.